Hi, I'm Michael from Raw Tattoo Talks. I'm also a tattoo artist based in Belfast and also the owner of Raw Tattoo Supplies. This is our first episode, and I'm going to introduce Wayne to you.
Hi guys, yes, I'm Wayne. I'm the owner of a tattoo studio in Newcastle, County Down, called Addicted to Ink.
Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, man. It's good to be here. It's finally here and get this done.
No, I'm excited to do this. Well, tell us a bit about yourself. How did you get into the industry?
So, I've been within the industry probably for about the last 20 years now. I was always into tattooing as a kid, and as a young sort of teenager. I opened my own studio about 12 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a private studio. I was there for quite a while, and just there recently, as I say, I've opened up a new studio in Newcastle, County Down.
Yeah. And what made you get into the industry? Like, what did you look up to anyone?
Yeah, I had quite a few sort of mentors in and around Belfast that I'd looked up to. Pete Bonner from Artistic Tattoos on the Woodstock Road was probably one of the biggest people that sort of pushed me within the industry and showed me what real tattooing was about.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I started doing wee Indian ink tattoos with like needles and thread in high school, silly, stupid things. But it wasn't until I started getting proper machine tattoos out of studios that kind of put my real sort of interest into, maybe this is something that I could do sort of idea.
So when you left school, that's what you wanted to do? Or did you have anything else that you were interested in doing?
I left school back in the sort of mid-90s, and back then you were always pushed to get sort of apprenticeships and trades and stuff like that. So I left high school, and I'm actually a time-served motor mechanic.
Oh,
and I done that
good.
there through until sort of my late teens. And then from there, I sort of started pushing a wee bit more. I went and got myself my own sort of tattoo set up. Throughout that time, I was constantly being tattooed by Pete Bonner on the Woodstock. I got to the point where I was calling in there every other sort of day, every other week, and really just hanging out in his studio. And like that was back in the day with like all the flash books and all the designs on the walls, and like I had spent hours just flicking through them and reading like the really old like tattoo magazines and stuff, and reading write-ups about the likes of the Lou family and the really big tattooists that a lot of people in Northern Ireland, I suppose, didn't really know about,
Yeah, well, when I was younger, like, I used to listen to music videos, Little Wayne. So I always knew that I was going to be heavily tattooed, but I didn't never think that I was going to become a tattooist. Like, my mate Paul, remember Paul? Yeah. You've met? He got a tattoo machine one night, and obviously we were all drunk. He started tattooing me.
As it happens.
He spelled the word wrong. And then I let him. We actually went to a tattoo studio in the Shankill. They done the stencil for him for the cover-up. And I let him do the cover-up.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
It was supposed to be a Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
It actually looked like a gravestone.
Okay, right, okay,
it was so random.
I think we kind of have all these sort of... because sort of like a lot of artists and stuff from kind of back in the day, or not even much artists, but even people getting tattooed, back in the day, like the artistic ability, it wasn't quite as much as what it is nowadays. Like,
no,
there's amazing artists on near enough every street corner nowadays.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you really had to search out exceptional artists. A lot of tattooists were just tattooists, weren't tattoo artists. It was copy and paste sort of stuff. Stick a stencil on, follow it, and a flat sort of, like, it was never this type of sort of colour range. You had maybe 4 or 5 colours.
You basically had to make it up.
Yeah, the colour palette was very plain and basic and sort of traditional swallows and things like that. Nowadays, we both know where the industry has went now. It's huge, so it is. I'm just glad to be a part of it.
And how long did you do your apprenticeship?
I didn't have a formal apprenticeship as such. I am pretty much self-taught. I learned by tattooing myself by tattooing my friends. I lucky enough had a really good close set of friends that they kind of already knew my artistic ability.
They were willing to give up some of their skin.
So they were like, and I would have had friends that would have come around and just literally been like, right, look, man, work away there. I'm here for the day, do what you want, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But then through constantly going in and out of Pete's shop, it took Pete a good long while to actually take me serious.
Yeah,
because I'm sure like all the old boys that I had loads of people coming in all the time, oh, you know, I want to be an artist, I want to be this here and all, and I like he kicked me out of the studio I don't know many times for just hanging around and being a wee lout like.
But it's more cool. People say it's more cool now to be a tattooist. You know what it was back then.
No, back then, like, you know, it was tattooing. The whole industry obviously has changed quite a bit in the last sort of 15, maybe 20 years.
Yeah.
Whereas we sort of mentioned there, most street corners will have a tattoo studio on it.
Yeah, it's.
We're back in the day, and and the thing is nowadays, one of the big differences is there's shop front tattoo studios.
Yeah.
Glass fronted, all open, you can see all the way in and sort of see what's happening. Back in the day, most tattoo studios were hidden away up atop, above shops, and it was a very, like, the councils wouldn't have give you a shop front shop if you were a tattooist maybe 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It was always classed as a very seedy, underhanded thing. It was always seemed to be in line with kind of like the sex industry when you had like the sort of the sex shops. They were treated very much similar in regards by like the council and stuff like that there. Where nowadays, like,
they're
I don't
more
know anybody
like,
that would even question if you were like, right, I'm going to open up a tattoo studio here. Right, okay, yeah.
Well, I found it very difficult with trying to get the studio a load of years ago. You know, you were going to the agencies, you're approaching them, and they were like, what is it you're doing? And you're like, oh, I'm opening a tattoo studio, and then they're going away, and then you're getting turned down, and then you're going back, and you're doing this, and then in the end, you know, like when I got the shop, I was like, how do you use the supplies to actually get the studio?
Yeah, that's it. I'm almost pushing it more as a sort of as a supply business rather than being a sort of a tattoo studio.
Where now, like, studios are just like, yeah, we'll get you in, but they're very clinical too. The tattoo studios are very more.
It has to be, but to be fair, like the procedures that Pete would have sort of walked me through back in the day. So, like, and this is back when you were working with coil machines, needle bars, making your own needles, hand drawn your own stencils, all that there sort of side of things, which also included sterilising.
Yeah.
Where most nowadays it's all just single use and sort of
all disposable.
It's all disposable. Where back in the day, what was done, the procedures that was done back then, excluding the sort of sterilisation side, is still practiced today. Mm-hmm. It's just, I think, made more manageable and studio friendly. You know, we still all use sharp boxes and hazardous waste bags. What we could use back in the day as single use, it was always done like, so the needles was pretty much really the only thing back in the day that was single use. You had disposable grips and stuff, but most people didn't really use disposable grips. Nowadays, I suppose it's like modern society in general. It's a disposable society, you know.
Yeah.
Everything's stowaway now.
I know.
Which I suppose has good and bad points to that there. I was just way there recently at a tattoo convention over the weekend, and I was having a conversation with a couple of old school tattoo boys, and the sort of conversation that arose about the actual the modern machines, the likes of sort of Cheyenne Unlimited, so them sort of pen style of machines.
Yeah. And
it's like back in the day for me to produce like maybe an A4 sized black and grey tattoo. Mm-hmm. I'd have had maybe 4 tattoo machines set up with my different needles into it. So you had a couple of liners, you had a couple of mags, things like that there. And that took a lot of time to build and set up and prep the night before and all this sort of stuff. Where nowadays we literally sort of open a box and pop out a couple of cartridges and again, there is good and bad sides to that there. I think, but with this whole sort of disposable side of things nowadays, we've kind of lost a wee bit of the soul of tattooing.
You think so? Yeah.
Yeah, man, yeah, because like as much as it was a really laborious thing, having to sort of like, I know it was maybe before your day, but making like sort of needle bars and stuff, like that. There was like, and it's I'm gonna say it's a dying art, but it's almost like a dead art now. Like there's, God, I don't know, not too many tattoos even around the whole world nowadays that make.
It's too easy just to get the cartridges, plugging in the whole thing of the wireless,
but also as well with the cartridges is. They're really good quality nowadays, and we can't keep arguing with this here.
No,
do you know what I mean? Back in the day when you were making your own needle bars, you had control over the quality yourself, and most other substitutes were subpar.
What way did you solder them, or
you would have soldered them? So you would have had like. Do you remember like the wee tobacco tins?
Yes.
You would have had one of them are filled with what we call pins, so needles, and you had jigs. So you had jigs set up for doing the different sort of needles. So you were doing like mags, but you were doing round shaders, round liners. And it was literally just, you'd have picked up, so if you were making, for example, a 7 round liner, you'd have picked up 7 needles, tapped them down, you'd have got them all sort of level and done. And then it's literally sitting on, you had your needle bar, and it was in the jig, set needles down in, and dropped a bit of solder down onto it.
And that was it?
And that was it sort of made up. And like, this is the thing as well, like, because when you look at a lot of really old school tattoos that were done maybe like back in the 60s and stuff like that, and the lines are super huge. Now obviously there's spreadage amongst the skin, but back in the day very rarely did the artist take a time to count the needles.
So you didn't know
it's not even that there, it's like
lined with.
If someone that deals with money a lot, like cash money nowadays, if someone hands them £500, they can normally tell whether that's close to being right or not just by the weight or the feel of it. And it was the same with needles. What you picked up in your hand, you kind of, that's roughly about a 7. You know what I mean? And it was sort of done that there sort of way.
Get them in there.
Yeah, but nowadays it's the manufacturing side of things with the likes of cartridges. You know well yourself. You've dealt very heavily with the manufacturing side of the cartridges and the needles, and
it takes a lot of research to get them actually. Right, they're obviously most cartridges are manufactured in China.
Yeah, they are, but it doesn't mean that they're all the same either.
No, and the mold too to fit into the machine has to be right, universal.
The space between the needles and the actual cartridge itself is a big sort of play on how much sort of ink's going to get withheld in the reservoir. Can there be too much? Can there be not enough? Is that or hold too tight and it's not going to sort of hold the needle and it's not going to let the ink flow out of it.
Yeah,
some of them can be too bad, but I don't know. I think it's a change in industry, and we'll have to move with it.
Yeah, definitely. And how do you feel that the styles have come on over the years from them?
Yeah, there's so many different sort of areas that you can cover with that sort of a question. There were styles of tattooing, like, so back in the day, there was really. I don't want to say the only style, but the only style is what we now know as traditional.
Yeah, it's traditional, yeah.
And there's, like, nowadays, there's so many rules around traditional tattoos.
When you're at
it has to be the same line weight. All the colours have to be a very sort of minimal palette and stuff like that. And there are rules around it being taken as a traditional tattoo.
Yeah.
Where back in the day, there was none of these rules. It was that way because that was the only
way to tattoo.
Yeah, there was no other ways of sort of doing it.
No one really looked at.
Yeah, it's like you made one, because especially like when we're going back to making the needle bars, you sat there and you made up your needle bar, and you were not making 4 and 5 different sizes of liners. You made one and you passed that there the whole way sort of through. If you were doing a sort of bold tattoo, you'd have went for a bold line. If you were doing a fine one, you'd went for a fine one. There was very rarely a mixture of line weights between your tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, it's almost like rules and regulations of, like, you want to do a traditional tattoo, this is exactly how it has to sort of be. And I don't know, I think it's obviously, it's not a bad thing, because I think when you sort of mentioned about going to conventions and things being sort of judged, there has to be a category and specific sort of genre for it to be judged on. But I think that a lot of the young artists that are coming in nowadays and saying that they're traditional artists, I don't think a lot of them understand truly
the traditional way of tattooing.
Yeah, and where these rules came from and how they sort of came around, you know what I mean? It is what it is.
And what is... Frick, I cut out there. I didn't even...
Well, we did.
Get that. We did. I just mumbled there.
Sort of just run off a wee bit there.
Yeah. I want to talk about a bit about what experiences you've had tattooing, you know, like, have you done anything?
Oh, yes, yeah. I was hoping something like this wouldn't have came up, like, sort of craziest tattoos. Sort
of. What's the weirdest experience?
Right, well.
That you've
I've had quite a few.
Had the tattoo on your body, where's...
I think we've all, if you've been in this industry long enough, we all have really strange experiences, and the one that sort of stays most foremost in my mind would be a brief rundown of the story, sort of a bit of background is I'd sort of, a fella that I was tattooing wanted to really get into it back in the day, and I sort of helped him out get into it and sort of give him one of my machines and stuff, and a few wee bits to sort of, he told me he wanted to tattoo himself, so you know, to practice and learn and stuff like that, so I'd sort of helped him out at quite a few machines lying around. And he ended up, so he started going with a girl. He was only going with her a couple of weeks. And I don't know what possessed this fella, because, like, to be fair, his head is lit. Like, I'm not going to mention who it is, but his head's lit. Like, but he decided that it would be a good idea to tattoo his girl's name on his dick. And I'm like, okay, he sort of came to me. And the worst part is, he was only going with her for a couple of weeks. And he had done this. And it was only a couple of weeks after that, I don't know, maybe a month or so after that, that he'd actually split up with her. So he's running around, some wee girl's name on his sort of bits there.
Was that not, like, was he not in pain? Like, how did he...
He enjoyed being heavily medicated as a sort of social way of doing things.
So, like,
so I'm sure the pain wasn't such
how was the procedure, like, in doing that?
I tried not to.
Did he get a hand? Did he get someone to give him a hand, or like
I genuinely
in a way to help?
I never asked that there, but I kind of always imagined that his missus would have given him a hand to do it. You know what I mean? But the worst part of it is sort of still to come. Is like, you know, he had done the name, he had split up with this girl, and it sort of came to me, and obviously I was the only person that he sort of really knew as sort of tattooing, bar going to like tattoo studios and stuff like that. Where
did you do it in the house at the time?
At this stage, I was sort of very early at the start of my career.
So you were in the kitchen, holding this guy's.
It was pretty much worse. I had to wrap up a bottle of Coke.
Did you get someone to give you a hand?
No, but like we were not the only people there either. Like there was literally like there was 4 or 5 people standing watching this thing.
It was a tattoo party.
It was kind of strange. I don't know if I want to call it a party. Like it was definitely something different. But
did the ink hold out?
We coloured his dick in green. So, like, to be fair, I think it was back then. It was meant to be like the idea we had sort of come up with was it was going to be a snake. And the green was sort of dark enough, like, you know, you're sort of talking maybe darker than this sort of green, but it would have been dark enough to cover what he had done. Because it was sort of, to be fair, like, I'm trying to think.
What was the writing like?
I think the girl's name was like, I think it was something like Chloe, so it wasn't too big. It wasn't like Samantha, you know what I mean? Where like it just wasn't working. But we did. We coloured his dick in green, and like, and I don't bother with this fella anymore. And I'm quite sure he's not going to hear this podcast. Like, so, but if he does, I know he'll get a bit of a laugh out of it as well. But as far as I'm aware, and I would imagine
that he still has it, like, because he's not going to be getting that lasered. Like, that's going to be a sore process. Like, that's not a pleasant sort of experience there, and that was probably one of my most weirdest sort of tattoos. But I've had my own experience, like, so I have during my apprenticeship.
What was that?
It was obviously when you're an apprenticeship, you have to do everything.
Oh, you're just throwing all the
so
really
a guy
bad
came
tattoos.
in and said that he wanted a dragon down, you know, like down where his obviously his dick is, and he comes in and so he booked in anyway, and he came in. We got him ready, got the stencil drew up. And I was like, man, you need to pull your trousers down, obviously. And he's standing there very awkward, you know, looking at me.
As well, too.
So I sets up the station as you do, the lab cloth, razor, cling film, all the inks, everything out. So he pulls it down. and I get the razor, and I start shaving.
It's like a moment of
So I start shaving the guy's pubes, right? And I'm actually halfway through, and I'm like,
what am I doing?
What the frick am I doing shaving your pubes? Like,
you
should have had this prep.
Yeah.
But obviously me, like, your apprenticeship, you don't want to say anything in a place. You just want a tattoo, right?
You knew that the other people, the other artists in the studio were...
So I'm sitting down like this. You know, like shaving and like, you know, being tidy about it. And he goes, and he wants his dragon like going down this way. So I shaved it anyway. We get it done anyway. We put the dragon on him. And halfway through, I had said to him, man, you know, like, you just have me shave that. And the guy that teach me how to tattoo, Mike, he was shouting across, yo, George Bush. And he can't wind him up, right?
I think that's one of the things about the studios, is tattoo studios. We can get away with a lot more than what most other sort of businesses and stuff can get away with. Like, and I'm sure you've seen some things go on in studios.
Oh, yeah, the studio.
You're coming in and it was just a laugh all day. It was just mental, you know. And
when I worked with Mike, like, we had some serious good times. Like, that time there was funny, and then he says that he wanted to book in for a dragon on the horse head, and I was like, no way.
You better at least shave before you come anywhere.
But I think that the much grief that Mike give him
stopped them from actually
coming back. I don't think he wanted to come back anyway.
So kind of get that. So the Big Mike kind of just sort of saved you with that one there.
When me and Big Mike were in there, we used to have some laugh with him. Like, so we used to wind up.
I suppose that's probably one of the things that I sort of missed out on for quite a few years. My studio sort of being a private studio in a wee small town back in the day. And it was just me. So the only real sort of banter was normally just between me and the customer.
Yeah, well...
and it was very quiet. And, like, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. And I, obviously, if you want to come from a professional standpoint, it gave me an opportunity to focus more on the work. Now, with my sort of new studio, like, there's 6, 7...
While we're on that, sure, well, tell us a bit about, like, obviously, the first studio and then how you progressed into, because you obviously worked on your own for a long time. So what made you want to make the change?
So my studio, my first studio, like I say, wee small studio in a wee back town place called Killylay, just out sort of south down direction.
I didn't even think anyone would get tattooed down there, and you're busy. That's
one of the things. Like, whenever I came into that there town and I sort of opened the studio, like, I remember a lot of the people, because back then I would have socialised in the town. I would have went to the bars and drank after work and stuff. And a lot of people were like, a tattoo studio here, that's never going to work. And that was people that lived in the towns, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so the doubters were there.
But I was lucky enough, obviously, by that stage, I already had a good bit of clientele built up from Belfast that I already knew was willing to follow and travel to be sort of tattooed by me. So I spent, 12 years nearly in that studio.
What year did you open the studio?
I opened that studio, and it was actually the start of December in 2011. And, like, man, I remember opening that place, like, there was no heating in this here shop or nothing, and it was in the start of December. It was Baltic.
How did you feel? Like, were you buzzing?
I was buzzing, man. Yeah, but it was such a nerve-wracking thing as well. You know, you were there and you were doing. A lot of the customers then that was coming, like I'd already explained, were people that I already knew that was travelling from Belfast. But because I'd opened up in the town, I had a lot of new people sort of coming to me, and it was more nerve-wracking tattooing them than what it was my regular clientele, so to speak. But I'd been by myself for many years in that studio, and then I've taught quite a few people, lucky enough, in my sort of time. I even sort of got to teach my eldest son a bit of tattooing and things like that there.
Which he didn't proceed with.
He didn't know, but the thing is like he has that knowledge there, and like I struggle to have time, as you know yourself. We all struggle to have time, but he's always sort of stalking me out, wanting to sort of do a wee bit of tattooing here and there. But
I think that this is the thing. Like, we'll not get too sidetracked for what we're getting on, but people like the thought of being a tattooist, but they don't want to put in the
hard work of what it actually takes, and they don't realise how much hard work it actually is.
It takes over your life.
It's time consuming. It really is. It's not a 9 to 5. It's not like working in a supermarket or a factory where you walk out the door at 5, 6 o'clock at night and you don't think about work until you're going back in the next morning. This is it's not a job. I always like to say it's a way of life. It's you have to live and breathe tattooing. You really do. And from that there, I think it kind of weans out who is sort of really dedicated to the industry and who isn't. Yeah. Because of I get customers all the time that's like, oh, your job looks so easy. All you do is sit and draw on people, and it's it's all I do. It's so easy, so it is. Nobody ever gets to see the background.
No.
Nobody gets to see all the hard work that we put in, the lack of social life that we have, and the impact as well on family.
Mental. I have my own struggles, you know, like I'm away all the time there. I'm just back from that show. I've come home for one day, offloading the van back in for the next few days, and I'm off to Germany.
That's right.
From Thursday.
Yeah.
And that's me away again for another 4 nights.
And we kind of sort of follow that similar sort of thing. And
my son was like, oh, I need you to take me to football. I wanted you to come and watch me football on Saturday. And you're going, oh, I'll come the following week.
Yeah. I'm in Germany this week.
It's very hard.
Like, I can't, it is.
But that's really my dedication to the
It's kind of what we sort of have industry. To do is, you know, if as much as we all love what we do, and regardless of sort of myself sort of tattooing ways and you sort of supply ways, we all love what we do, but this is a job, and if you want to succeed, it's going to be hard work. You're going to have to make them sacrifices, and it's very, very hard, especially on family. If you're a single lad and you've no kids, you've no commitments, you're flying, but that's sort of obviously regards of any job. But in this sort of job, if you are married or you're with a partner and you've got a couple of children and still trying to do this here job, which is almost a 24/7 job, you know.
Yeah.
If you're not doing something, for me personally, if I'm not doing something surrounding tattooing, I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
Do you know, and that's, there is no separation from that there.
Yeah.
Now, sort of going back to sort of where I was and where I am now, there's a bit of a difference because obviously, as I said, at the small studio, being just me, then COVID, as we all got hit with that sort of came around and gone. And when I got back to getting into the studio and had that all opened,
did that affect you? Like, you know, like what was your mental state like when you went back into the studio? Was that when you realised
my mental state kind of went during COVID? Because, as I'm sure you could probably relate, pre-COVID, I didn't really have much time to focus on my own mental well-being.
Yeah,
because I was constantly busy.
I don't like having time to think.
Yeah.
I really don't.
That's it. And then COVID came around, and we had nothing else to do but a load of time on our hands.
Yeah,
and I really, like, my head went, like, I did have to go and seek medical help. Like, I'm not ashamed or embarrassed to say that. I believe it was a good thing that I had the strength to go and get the help that I needed, because, like, through the middle of that there sort of COVID lockdown, like, man, I was in a dark place, like, in places where like a family man shouldn't really be.
Yeah.
So coming out of COVID, I was like, right, look, you know, I want to do something more than just what I'm doing here now, and I started bringing in a couple of other actual apprentices and sort of started teaching tattooing again. And it got to the point there with the old studio that there was 4 of us there tattooing. Obviously I was teaching at that there stage as well. And the studio, we kind of just outgrew the studio. Yeah. It got to the point where, like, the business was stale, the workload was stale because there was no more growth. I refurbished the studio quite a few times to try and create more space and stuff.
Yeah, try and give it a wee bit more.
There's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
So I ended up making the decision there at the start of this year that I was going to look for new premises. And I touched very lucky from going from a wee small town, a wee small shop in a small town, to now my studio. It's huge in comparison now. And when there's now 6 of us, there's about to be 7 of us in the studio in the next month or 2. And that's a big change.
Yeah, that has its own struggles, I'm sure, on you.
Oh, it really does. Like, I didn't ever sort of think whenever I first started getting into tattooing that I was going to have 5, 6, 7 members of staff, people working under me, you know.
Well, you were with yourself for so long.
Yeah, this is the thing.
Set in your own ways.
No, it's a really good thing, and I love the vibe in my studio. Like, I'm in a fortunate enough position that every artist that's in my studio, I've actually been able to teach and sort of mould and sculpt the sort of what I believe is sort of true tattooing. in my eyes and what I believe. But also with that there comes downsides, because most of us as tattooists, we have pretty big personalities.
Yeah, well, if we're 7 personalities.
And you're working off maybe 6 or 7 different personalities, which is all big, lively things. There's always going to be conflict.
Yeah.
And the stress from that there then is to where I was being only reliant on myself. A couple of days a week would have covered all my bills. To where now I'm in a bigger studio, I have so many people reliant on me, paying all the bills, making sure all the supplies are there, making sure the doors are open in time, making sure that a big thing now, keeping a check of the social media sort of side of things as well.
Yeah, well, that's definitely changed the industry in a big way.
Big change. It's probably one of the main reasons why there's such a big change, I think, in the sort of tattoo industry is, and I suppose not even just tattoo industry, but social media in general has brought around even things like this here. No,
yeah, well,
you know, it's brought things to homes that would have never really had an insight into, for example, the tattoo industry.
Yeah.
You know, people that would have never experienced it, people that don't like tattoos would never get a tattoo and would always have went off the perception that it's for criminals or druggies or, you know, that sort of perception, or bikers and only ever getting skulls and Grim Reapers. It's true, like, because back in the day, like, a lot of us did, like, I've got a Grim Reaper on myself, so, and you've got a tombstone, but we'll not get into that one, like.
I know, I've got some real
But then through
tattoos.
the likes of social media is now to the point where people are now getting to see that it's not just these type of tattoos. You know, you can get a really beautiful, meaningful tattoo for a loved one that's passed away, or to mark the sort of the birth of a child, or things like that there. And these images and these ideas are now reaching people in places where they would have never had an opportunity before to see stuff like this if it wasn't for the likes of social media.
Well, I feel that that's why the tattoo industry, that's my opinion, it's not everyone's, that's the reason why the industry's, like, you've got the REACH laws coming in, and EU REACH laws and stuff like this are coming into effect because this industry is so mainstream.
It is getting so mainstream.
Doctors, you have a lot of people, and now these doctors and stuff are going, well, I want to know what is being tattooed on me. There needs to be some
kind of sort of control in this here, and I suppose the likes of sort of America probably stepped up pretty big when it comes to the likes of that. The FDA. They would govern most sort of products in America that's sort of open to the general public, and it's a good thing. Like, you look at specifically your REACH range.
Yeah.
The chemicals and sort of components that is used nowadays to make them.
A lot of testing goes into it too.
A lot of testing goes into it. I see, and I'm sure you do a lot of travelling around the world, and you see some world-class artists. And you know yourself now, the biggest sort of style of tattooing now has shifted for so many years. It was black and grey.
Yeah,
black and grey.
It's not really much black and grey now.
It's moving to colour. And it's like,
the colour work
it's like, there's not, like, it's almost like there's a whole new genre being sort of created nowadays. You always had realism, and you had black and grey realism, and then you had people starting to dabble with sort of colour realism and starting to produce stuff. The likes of one of the first that I'd really seen personally that I knew was Claire Griffin.
Yeah.
And she was doing like that, their sort of realism colour work, like, and you were looking and thinking, Jesus, man, that's like, I can't believe that's even being done with tattoo ink.
I know.
And then now, move forward maybe 7, 8, 9 years, and now there's almost a whole new genre that's like ultra realism or hyper realism. Sometimes sort of it would be known as, the word, like, that's fucking photogenic. That's like, is that tattoo? Like, you almost need to feel.
There's a guy that done the Titanic last year. Chris Meehan.
Yes, yeah.
His,
you see the likes of stuff that they're producing.
His Kanye West, I think he did, is just like,
it's there. It's like, it's almost like he is on the fucking
it's so
good.
Know?
It's amazing, and
to see artists being able to do that, like, that's
a change in the industry alone. But because even that tattoo itself, not that we really probably would have had the equipment or the colours to do stuff like that back in the day, but if it was anything like that was closely being done back in the day, the old school boys would have been like, nah. No. Where's your black lines? Where's your black?
Yeah.
That's that tattoo's not ever going to hold up. And back in the day, with what was available to them, if you tried to do stuff like that, it probably wouldn't have held up. The inks have changed nowadays, but I also think one of the biggest sort of changes within the industry is because, like you're sort of saying, how mainstream tattooing is nowadays.
Yeah.
It's open to everybody. There's so many people that would be going to art college back in the day. And when they left the likes of art college, they would have been graphic designers, that sort of stage, of sort of architectural
like
designs,
that,
things like that there. Where a lot of them aren't nowadays. A lot of them are coming out of art college and they're going straight into the tattoo industry.
It's because a lot of them are leaving the university, doing all the qualifications. They're getting these degrees. They leave. The jobs are nowhere near as well paid as what the tattoo industry.
Even if they're there, if they're available nowadays.
The tattoo industry tattooers do live a comfortable life, but as you say,
we work hard for it.
It's a 24-hour day thing.
It definitely is like,
you're tattooing in the morning, you're designing in the evening, and you're doing it the next day, and then you're going to shows on the weekend.
Then you get all your social media, all your messages, the reply, all that other stuff. But sort of coming back to the likes of these here people that are now coming out of art college, why we're able to do, or a lot of artists are able to do this sort of hyper-realism style of tattooing, is that these people are like coming out of art college and they have worked with numerous amounts of different media.
Yeah.
So they've been working with oil paintings and sort of fabric and clay and going more into sort of modernized sort of graphic design and sort of CAD and a lot of sort of computer orientated sort of designs. And then they're coming into the tattoo industry and they're bringing that knowledge into the industry. And then if they're lucky, they get someone that's really good that can teach them the fundamentals of tattooing. And with you combine them two knowledges of a really experienced tattooist teaching you how to tattoo, and then someone coming from art college coming in and being taught that there with the knowledge that they are bringing in, that they have spent maybe 5, 6, 7 years in art college learning.
Yeah.
And combining that there together, and they're now finding ways to produce tattoos that can hold up and stand the test of time for 10, 15, 20 years. Where back in the day, most colour tattoos, you were lucky if you got 7, 8 months out of them before they fell out.
I know, or else they spread out, don't they? Like,
they would have always sort of spread out. But again, that was sort of big, heavy, hard-hitting machines, and now
not
you've
running,
got wee soft light machines that sort of just about sort of feather into the skin and stuff. Where back in the days, these things, like a coil machine, like when you were in school and you heard a school bell ring, that's a tattoo machine.
No.
Like, that's literally what it was.
You don't hear that now. When you walk in the studio, they're all low.
I was away there just recently at that Sligo convention. Both of us were sort of at it there. And I was sitting tattooing away, and the fella that was on singing had stopped singing. It took a wee bit of a sort of break, and I was sitting tattooing away, and all of a sudden I just heard this coil machine.
I know, and people are like, he's got that on.
Come from? And it was Tommy Lee from the Lab 13. And it took me, because every time I turned my head, it sounded like it was coming from a different direction. Like, what's going on? I looked over, and it was Tommy rocking out with a coil machine, and it was like, man, I miss that noise. I do, man, I miss that noise. There's something.
When you hear it does, like I heard it when I was down there myself, and I was like, oh, you're at a show.
You'd be very similar to me. When you, back in the day when you were first starting to get into tattoos, when you walked into a tattoo studio, there was like, it was your senses, it was like a sensory overload. You heard the buzzing of the tattoo machines, you smelt the Dettol, or back in the day it was Savalon. There were certain elements that you went in, and like sometimes it would have been very sort of overwhelming, and you'd have been, sir, can I get a tattoo, please? I want to be tattooed here, you know what I mean? And like we're sort of nowadays, it's all modern and flowers on walls.
The studios aren't the same, but the studios, like I my own studio, like when I opened it, I had it very clinical, everything white,
very white,
but that's just the way I am. I never wanted it like the old school tattoo.
I spent my time, my old studio, like my studio itself, sort of separate from the reception, was always just all the walls were white, and I'd done like black on the skirting boards, and that was it. And I lived that way for so long, and I'd done it for the reason of white. You'll be able to see if it's clean or dirty. Yeah. And that was an impression that customers would have had if they come in and they seen the place was white. It was like, clean, clinical, like you'd sort of say. Honestly, now with this here new studio of mine, I kind of wanted to change this here up, and I wanted a wee bit more of my personality into it. And very fortunate that I've been into the industry for so long. I've collected and amassed so many trinkets and crap, pretty much.
From shows and stuff you've been at?
From shows, from doing a lot of travelling around the world because of tattooing. And also as well, quite a lot of times, customers going on holidays.
Yeah.
And seeing things, like I love skulls and Buddhas and things like that. So like a lot of times my good customers would have sort of seen something away on holiday. They'd have been like, I'm going to get that there for Wayne, So it was all the wee trinkets that sort of brought.
Yeah.
So when I moved into this here new studio, like you've seen it yourself, it's a pretty sort of big space. And so I have a lot of walls to fill. And it's now given me the opportunity of all this, my missus called junk. That I like to personally
collect a lot of stuff. Like you've seen the supply shop upstairs. Until I move into the new place that we're getting, there's a lot of stuff. I've got
like
bikes.
That's like a wee treasure trove for me. It's like I'd be like, mate, you know what, mate, just you go on home and leave me
I've
there.
got 2 bikes, 3 skateboards, and all sorts of.
I think skateboards, I don't know why, is a kind of thing for most of us as tattooists.
I find I get a lot of stuff because of like when I was younger as a child, obviously
we didn't have.
You didn't have money to buy a lot. I didn't get anything when I was a kid.
So now we have the opportunity.
So now I get on like a big kid, and when I see a bike, I'm like, I'm getting that.
But now, to be fair, that bike is not just a bike,
Yeah, well, they are. I do like them.
I think I could hang up on my wall quite easily there, to be fair. But skateboards, yourself, man, I would sort of collect skateboards and stuff. I sort of like them there.
Yeah. I get a bit carried away. I went to a show in the summer. A guy had a load of skateboards there. I bought one. And next minute I walked by again, and I bought one or 2. Yeah. So, and I had to stop at that. So there's 3 of them. I
have a trouble. This is one of the sort of the problems with me is, I think it's a lot of people would sort of say it's OCD or ADD or ADHD, whatever. I'm not going to be here to put labels on myself. Other people can do that for me. But like a lot of things in my studio, if you go into my studio and you look at the walls, a lot of it's very symmetrical.
Yeah.
It kind of has to be. So more often than not, I can't just buy one. I have to buy 2. Because if it's like I've got one that's going to go on the wall there, well then I need another one to go there.
So when your missus is out, you're buying double the junk?
This is it, yeah. This is it. It's pretty much, it's like she sort of knows if she's going to buy me something for my birthday, it's like you can buy me another one of them for Christmas. Do you know what I mean? Like it's the way it sort of goes. I have to have 2. And like there recently I was away over to, yourself, I think it was you sort of helped get me a sort of spot at the studio, was the Preston, or not the studio, the convention, Preston convention. And it was cool, the show was pretty cool, but they had, obviously all most conventions have vendors and stuff.
Yeah.
They had this one vendor made, and he was there doing taxidermy. And that's not really a very rare thing in conventions. It is a wee bit rare, but you don't see it quite
They're very expensive.
Man,
some of the stuff
he had a wolf. This man had a wolf.
This stuff's like £2,000-3,000.
This wolf was $3,500.
Like
but mate, you walked over.
Just walking around with £3,500 just to buy a wolf head.
Mate, if I had $3,500, it wasn't even a wolf head. Mate, this was a full wolf.
Oh,
this was a full wolf. So it was, man. I swear, mate, you walked over and you literally wanted to fucking you wanted to stroke this here thing. It was like it was. Oh man, it was so cool. I ended up actually buying. It was like a wee round sort of clock face thing.
So when you go to the things, like when I go to the likes of a stall like that there, and I asked the price for the, like, say there's something there you want, right? You start off, you go over, and I always do this, go to the conventions, and I always go straight to that bit you're saying, the trader bit.
Yep, the vendors.
And you'll go round and you'll ask, like, for a price of something.
Much as that.
And then you come away and then you walk around and you go, right, I don't justify spending that much, but I'll have to buy something. I done it in London last year with a lamp, like a skull lamp, right? And I went around and I asked about the price of this lamp. I think it was like £350. I was like, no way. She's going to go mental if I buy that at £350. So I walked back around, come back around again. So I started then going, right, I'll need to look at the cheaper options here.
What can I get that's kind of close to this, but the missus won't kill me?
Without her going at me.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I got this other one, and I think it was like, it was only like £100 odd. But it's the same as situation about the bike. See the bike that you're saying about?
Yep.
I bought the bike, and she'll probably watch this and she'll go,
but I bought the bike. This now, like.
I bought this bike, and I didn't even tell her I got it. That's why I put all the stuff in the shop. So I put the bike up the stairs, and she came in one day, and she goes, that's a new one. Where'd you get that? I was like, I just got that there. Some guy was selling it, so he was, and I bought it off him. And she's like, much did you pay for that? I say, I just paid £100 for it. Like, she would say, no chance you paid £100. No. Really, I paid £500 for the bike. So,
but you know what, man? It's like, especially sort of myself and sort of you. Like, we don't spend our money on a lot of other things. We're not out getting drunk every weekend and stuff.
Well, I don't
like
drink.
We work. We're constantly flat out. If we're not focusing on our own businesses, we're out at conventions and shows and things like that there, and like a sort of a heavy night out for us is the likes of me, you, and our missus is going for a meal somewhere, I know. Or that's sort of the height of sort of entertainment now.
I was over to convention a few weeks ago with John.
Yes, yeah.
And I had one drink with him, having the dinner. The guy must have had.
That's a hard thing to do with him.
10.
Yeah.
And I was like, no way I would be getting out of here if I was drinking.
He is a JD fiend, like he really is, and he's a hard man to keep up with. But like he's a big stature, so I think that's why he can have maybe like 10 times the access of JD that I can, and still be sitting here like, yeah, man, things are normal. Do you want some more? Do you want a bottle of wine here? And it's like, man, I've had 3 JD here.
I know.
So. Yeah.
So what about conventions? What conventions have you got coming up next?
So next one, obviously, I'm just back there from a good friend of mine's, both good friend of ours, should I say. He just produced his first show there in Sligo. It was the Sligo Tattoo Convention.
Yeah.
First show, pretty cool. I was glad to be a part of it. We're literally just back there last night, and we're away here on Thursday to the Marmot Tattoo Festival. One of the biggest sort of shows that I would work sort of throughout the calendar year, and
it looks like a really good show. Like
it's amazing, and the guys go well out of their way for the sort of the artists for the after party.
Yeah.
That's a big thing that really make you feel kind of very sort of special about what they sort of try and produce. But don't get me wrong, the convention itself is absolutely world class. Like the artists that are there,
there's a lot of
and
talent,
the work that is being produced. Like you even see some of the booths. The way these guys are coming in and setting their booths up, there's people with like 5 and 6 TVs on the wall, and
they're setting the booths up better than what the traders are. So
but they're setting up the booths better than what my studio is. So, you're thinking, whoa,
turning up with all this equipment.
Yeah, like there's you guys, Cleopatra Inc., and like they're one of the biggest sort of studios around, biggest sort of businesses in general within sort of European tattooing, and like they have pretty much like a whole wall. And like they bring their own special backdrops with big 3D balls sticking out of the wall, and like,
must cost you a fortune traveling all that out. Where the base demons, or are they?
So I think they have quite a lot of studios, but I know they have one actually in Marmot where the convention is.
So they're like the main. So the show's obviously held in Marmot, so that's the main studio in their city.
The thing is I think this Cleopatra, don't get me wrong, I don't know a hell of a lot. I'm sure it'll be sort of corrected if there's any comments put in sort of this podcast, but Cleopatra Inc., I believe, is more of a sort of business than anything. I think they have
a franchise.
More franchise. They've got quite a lot of sort of studios dotted around, I don't know, sort of... I wouldn't just sort of say, I don't think it's just limited to Turkey. I think there may be some in Spain and stuff, I'm not too sure. But the actual quality of work that's being produced there is sort of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But then the after parties are synonymous. They're something special, man. I'm looking forward to it. Like myself and my partner, we go out here on Thursday.
So it's going to be exciting.
We're going to tattoo Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking if I'm tattooing my partner at this here convention. So it's a wee bit less stress. Customer wise, and it's a wee bit more of a relaxed vibe. We're not sort of
You're not
on a real specific deadline, and we're not sort of stuck with it. We want to take a break, we can, but we do the convention Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we have I think it's another 9 days we have out there. So as much as it's a convention, this is a wee bit more of a holiday as well. From
a bit of downtime from the studio.
Downtime from everything, as you know yourself. What I've sort of
hopefully the studio's in one order when you get back.
Hopefully it'll still be standing. Like hopefully the building will be standing. I know the guys in the studio. Like I'm very lucky with sort of what I have in the studio.
Yeah.
As much as what we were talking about earlier, having a lot of different personalities, the guys kind of get on all pretty well, and sort of. My sort of longest serving artist, he will kind of sort of take the reins.
Yeah,
make sure the studio sort of
lead
runs
artist while you're not there.
So I feel totally confident with all the guys that are there, and I know that I'll sort of come back and. Me being me, I'll probably have a few things to pick bones at and moan about.
Well, that's the way I used to go.
As long as the sort of the work's getting done, the rent's getting paid, and the building's still standing, I'll sort of take that there. Do you know what I mean? I'll be happy with that there. You know, so and obviously, like I say, sort of the amount of stress and things that's been all going through these last couple of months with things that are in planning that a lot of people don't even know about yet. Opening the studio, doing the conventions, and still doing my everyday tattooing.
Yeah.
So this Marmas convention, as I said, is
more of a holiday too.
It's a break. So and it's a busman's holiday, and the fact that we go out there and we do a few days work, but then we do have a bit of 9 days. Is it? That. I think it's 9 days or something that we have.
It's a good holiday.
It is, man. I'm super looking forward to it.
I don't get to go away for no longer than.
Well, again, we are fortunate enough that, like, you know, this is sort of planned a year in advance.
Yeah.
And it always sort of kind of will be. The way the likes of the Marmas show runs is if you work it this year, you're automatically guaranteed your space next year.
Yeah.
And if you don't go the next year, you lose your space. So it's I have it planned I'm already starting to plan.
For next year?
For next year, and I've not even been to this
year's
show.
Well, you can use it as a holiday, and it's also gets you to clear your head too.
Gets clear your head, but it also, again, is sort of you get a lot of sort of fortunate opportunities to where you can get to sort of see a lot of some of the world-class sort of artists as you do a lot of travelling around the world. And this here to me is one of them, their type of opportunities where I can go and sort of fanboy out, I suppose, a bit at sort of some of the artists that's sort of going to there. And like I said, one of my biggest inspirations, and specifically black and grey tattooing, is Yarson. And like this
he's out there.
He's out there working it, and he's flipping. His black and grey, every sort of, obviously I follow him on sort of every social media platform that he has. And like every time I see his work, it's mind blowing. And black and grey being the genre that it is, you think there's only so many ways of doing black and grey, and this man just seems to produce every day, every week.
A lot of the black and grey artists are now starting to use the whitewashes, the opaques.
Yeah, sort of getting more into sort of grey tones and stuff and all. Yeah, so where like he doesn't really tend to do that. He kind of is more of a sort of high contrast sort of artist, but such professional to where the work is just amazing. And then you have sort of the likes of, obviously, Soy Dan. Soy Dan's running the Marmas show. Him and another fella, Adam. But Soy Dan, very good friend of mine. He's really, really big into his colour work.
Very nice work.
So I get sort of a lot of sort of knowledge from watching and meeting the likes of Yarson, and the time that I spend with the likes of Soy Dan. I love it, man. I go there and I sort of fanboy out and be like a wee sponge and try and be like a wee child that just absorbs everything. And
well, that's why I think you need to go to conventions and the likes of work, big shows to be alongside that. You know, if you're not going out to the conventions, you're not
going to push yourself.
You're not going to. You're just going to be in your own lane.
Yeah, and you're going to become very sort of stale. Because you're not going to have anything that's going to keep pushing you, and like you're going to these conventions and you're like, if me personally, I'm going and I'm seeing these people and I'm just my mind's blown.
You're going to come back,
and you're coming.
And
back
if you get one tip from that artist, you're going to come back and use it and try and progress from it.
This here a go, and maybe even if you're not even getting tips, you're seeing what other people are doing, and you're like, man, I want to be this. I want to be doing this. So you're coming back with like a fucking fire lit up your arse, you know, and
it gives you that. It gives you
that drive and that
drive.
Sort of push.
Yeah,
and you know yourself, sort of, if you're not doing that there, as a tattooist, if you're not wanting to put yourself out there and go to these shows and see what other people are doing, because it's the only opportunity you're going to get to see artists from all over the world doing lots of different things.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to go and see that, you're going to get too comfortable, stuck in your own ways, and you yourself as an artist won't really progress as much or as far as what your potential could be if you do put yourself out there and start going to sort of conventions and sort of working them, like. And
I've been to a lot of shows this year. Like, I think I've done like 16 shows or something.
And that's that. A lot of people don't understand. That's a lot. Like, so it doesn't sound like a high number, but with sort of that's sort of
everywhere.
16 sort of weekends away.
I know.
Traveling around sort of the world.
It's very hard, sort of, with the running and the supplies too. But that's another thing. That's why I closed the studio.
Yeah, is sort of trying to juggle both.
I felt the studio was it was causing me a lot of stress. It wasn't being run on its own. You know, I felt like I was having to still go over and do stuff that I shouldn't have been able to.
And then that there's taken away from the time that you really do need to be putting into the supply. Yeah, well, that's sort of your future.
Full focus now is on raw pigments, the supplies, and obviously my own convention, the Titanic Tattoo Convention.
That's it, I see sort of a lot of sort of now. It's almost like a lot of conventions are popping up now. And obviously you're a part of sort of that there. You're a very, very big part of it. Like what you were able to produce there this year at your Titanic show. Mm-hmm. You know yourself, obviously I'm planning on doing my own show at the minute, but walking in on that Thursday night and sort of the setup night and seeing what you had already sort of had there set up for the weekend, like that was pretty mind blowing, man. I have to give you your
It was a vision. Like when I remember getting into the Titanic the first year I went into the Titanic with a friend, and I said 1 year I'll have a show like this. Yeah. Then obviously we took over the show. And then the following year, that's when I wanted to do all the stuff that I wanted to do over the last
ideas that you had planned and what you had sort of seen from going around and sort of seeing conventions and props and
a lot of sleepless nights.
I know you've got sort of a bigger plans as well for sort of next year, but what has already been sort of produced this year is for me it's a very different scale of even sort of what I'm looking at, and that's kind of why I feel a wee bit more comfortable in doing what I'm doing, because I know that I'm not trying to produce.
All shows are different. Like that's you go to.
But it's having that vision.
Yeah, I just have my own vision of what I want.
Yeah, and as well too, you were in a really fortunate position as well too, where the contacts that you have met over the last couple of years, because of all the time and the effort that you have put in, give you that opportunity to be able to showcase international artists to our wee country in Northern Ireland. Yeah. And that was an amazing thing. Myself, I sort of more trying to orientate in a different direction, more of an old school sort of direction of sort of national artists. Mm-hmm. And that's you're sort of talking about vision, that's my vision.
Yeah.
That's sort of where I'm sort of
looking. Everyone has different visions on what way they want things to go. I think I'm more of a, like obviously I can tattoo and I done the apprenticeship and stuff, but like I feel that during the apprenticeship I'm more of a business minded, that's where I see my strengths. And you kind of sort of focus your energy more going that their direction from a very sort of early point in your actual tattoo career. You started focusing there, and I think you are a very sort of astute business person, and that's came across to me from for as long as what I've known you is you kind of seen that gap in the market. And you were the type of personality that was able to, because we can all a lot of times see gaps in markets, but a lot of us don't have the drive to kind of sort of fulfill that there gap. Well,
and you sort of did, and you were able to get in, and it took a lot
of like
work,
grinding, sitting there, going to shows and all the obviously the smaller shows over in the UK. I remember used to do shows over there. I was only like 20 artists, 30 artists, and I'm traveling all the way over and not making no money.
But it was the time and effort that you put in there as it sort of built it up. And I think as well too, sort of doing the likes of conventions is obviously the biggest sort of scope of the conventions is the artists that you bring to it. And there's only really a way of going about that is either by you putting yourself out there and going and travelling around and meeting them. or for myself, I've been in the industry long enough that I know, because I'm only doing the sort of national sort of side of things, I know pretty much all the artists that will sort of come and and do the show sort of for me. So I kind of feel comfortable enough in the fact of that there. And again, it's just a different perspective. They're
different shows. Like there's many other shows that's going on, and they're different. I just see my vision of, because I go to the European shows. Like one was Brussels, and I remember walking into it and I was like, "This is a show that I want to be able to do."
As is the sort of the bar that has been set for me, sort of thing. Like.
And that show's always stuck in my head, and we're back out this year. This show that I'm going to here in Germany this week apparently is supposed to be really, really good. But it's the likes of like at the Marmot show and stuff.
This is the thing, they're all
big shows.
I think sort of a lot of European shows nowadays are sort of almost kind of overtaking the sort of American market in a way. Because American conventions to me back in the day, I say back in the day, but sort of 5, 6, 7 years ago, were the biggest shows that I ever heard of, and seen through the like sort of social media. And now I'm starting to see a lot more European shows. And not even just European shows, because obviously yourself putting on big shows, and the likes of sort of Martin MacGyver, with the likes of sort of the London show, sort of things like that. They're a big sort of format, and obviously the Dublin show that was just on there at the weekend.
They're all big. They're all good. That's the type of shows that I like. Them big, massive ones. That's what gets me. But saying that, when you were at that show on the weekend, I had a brilliant time.
This is the thing, and again, people that we all know, and we've all sort of spent a lot of time within the industry, sort of together, and it's like an opportunity to catch up with friends that maybe a lot of times you don't see for maybe a year at a time or so. We'll
touch on a bit of like what advice you would give for any tattoos, like any up and coming people want to get an apprenticeship.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Seriously, go and find a 9 to 5.
And trying to get into
mortgages and all that stuff so much more easier. Don't do tattooing. But if you are stupid enough to do tattooing, I've had this conversation with a few people again, sort of over the sort of recent years, and it kind of harks back a wee bit to what we were talking about earlier on with like so art college and stuff. Is that if you are wanting to get into tattooing, go to art college.
Yeah, that's your advice.
Everybody else is doing that there. People that the new people that are coming into the industry nowadays are coming out of art college.
Yeah, well, I had an apprentice that was under us. He was
they're sort of there,
a graphics designer.
Yeah, this is the thing, and like they're here, and if you're not going to art college before you come into or some kind of sort of form of art college or TAC or something like that, they're the ones they're coming into the game sort of ready with the bar sort of set pretty high. And if you're not doing that, you're not coming in on their level. You're already starting down sort of here. So you're already putting yourself on the back foot trying to start that way. I'm not saying that it can't be done, but it's just a hard way to sort of doing it. And the artistic ability of people nowadays that are coming into the game, they've stepped the sort of whole level up. So
yeah,
I think that there, and I suppose hard work and graft, portfolio.
Have a portfolio.
I think have a sort of a really good hand-drawn portfolio, because a lot of us tattooists that are potentially going to take you on, we're very old school minded and won't really consider a portfolio but we won't really consider a portfolio that's on an iPad.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Where if you come in and you show us 7, 8, 9, 10 hand-drawns that you have done, we're going to take you a lot more sort of serious then. And you know yourself, you go in and out of many studios and probably get kicked out of all of them.
No one likes the thought of, taking on the apprentice. But if someone walks in and they've got the portfolio there, and you know that the dedication's there, and that's what they want to pursue.
This is it. And sort of from a start-out perspective is you will get kicked out of 99% of studios, and nobody will listen to you and nobody will want to take you on.
Yeah.
But you need to keep in the back of your head is, I only need one person to say yes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So we can take 10, 15, 20 people telling me no. All I need is one person to say yes.
Well, that's it.
And if you're going to put the time and effort in to go around them, maybe 20 studios, that alone kind of shows a bit of dedication. It shows that you do really have an interest in being part of this here sort of community.
Yeah. And that's us. We're going to wrap it up today. But what, before you go, like, what have you got planned for the future? What exciting things have you got?
So for myself, obviously a lot of sort of traveling. There's a wee bit of traveling with yourself around a lot of conventions. But personally, I'm already in planning for running my own show in Newry. Next year, we're going to be doing a show. It's called the Northern Gateway Tattoo Convention on the 28th to the 30th of June next year. Again, I'm sort of trying to do a national show to sort of showcase artists from north and south of Ireland. A couple of sort of international artists here and there, if possible, but more so focused on artists from north and south of the border. And with being in Newry, it kind of gives me that opportunity because it's an hour from Belfast and an hour from Dublin. And
what's the name of your show, just so people can...
It's the Northern Gateway Tattoo Convention. Obviously, we're on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook, stuff like that. So, obviously, artists' side of things, if there's an interest there and you're interested, hook us up, find us on Instagram and show a bit of interest, and we'll kind of sort of take it from there. Like.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, I'd appreciate you having me here. It's an honour to be a part of this here. It's cool to see where the industry is sort of moving, and
hopefully we can get more artists on, which we have another artist lined up from the south of Ireland. He's going to be our next episode, so stay tuned.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
No problem.